Hi, everyone. We're
Reason
going
I
round
don't know,
again.
but there we go.
Hi, Anne. How are you?
I'm fine, Bill, and
Yeah, we're
you?
doing okay. Doing okay. So,
Good,
we haven't
good.
sort of been together talking about Brexity stuff for a while, Anne.
We haven't, no, and there's really, sadly, the Queen's passing has sort of interrupted Brexit, so there's not an awful lot to update on Brexit. I must be truthful,
Yeah,
but we
but
do what we can.
we were supposed to be getting news, certainly on the driving license front by the end of July. Then it was, well, August disappears, doesn't it? Certainly down
Yep.
this end.
Yeah,
Um,
there were very few negotiations, as was to be expected, but I don't think seriously we're going to get too much before October. I really
right.
don't.
Well, I
Um,
mean, let's be honest. We're not.
apparently the agreement has been reached. It's just a few annexes that need redacting. I'm not quite sure. Amending, call it what you
Oh, you're
will.
yep.
But no, I mean, the British Embassy updates, but they only update to say that there are no updates, really. So it's terribly frustrating. It really is for everybody.
Right. Okay. So we're not really getting very far on all of this at the moment, then, Anne.
Not at all. There's hardly anything to update. I mean, as soon as there is anything, obviously, then we'll update everybody.
Sure.
Yeah, but we're still heavily on the case. So what can I say? Also
Yeah.
heavily on the case of those that are being fined. And I mean, in July, I was working with this. I was working on this with the British ambassador personally. For
Uh-huh.
those who are not residents here, but they have their NIE, and seemingly the Spanish Guardia Civil don't seem to understand that an NIE does not mean you have a TIE, a residency, and they're saying, but you are a resident. They're saying, no, we're not. Well, I had 30 cases before July. Then it was sorted apparently with the chief of Guardia Civil. But this week, unfortunately, I've heard of another one who has been fined as a result of having an NIE as a swallow driving his own registered Spanish plated vehicle. He's not on the padron, thank goodness, but he does have an NIE. So, I mean, we're appealing on his behalf, basically. So
Well,
if anybody gets stopped who are not on the padron, who is not a resident here in Spain, as in this is your primary residence, please,
right.
it's important you let me know because we need to keep tabs on this and we will fight them on your behalf.
Right. So is this just down here on the Costas, Anne, or is this happening
No,
in
I
other
mean
parts of Spain?
there were 30 Bill. It started off in Malaga, and I thought, oh, well, it started off Fuengirola La Cala, and I thought it might just be the one police officer, the Guardia Civil, that didn't get the things right. Then it moved to Estepona, then it went to Almeria, then to Granada, and then to Lanzarote. Tell you obviously it wasn't the same one,
Right. Okay. Okay.
but we were fighting, I mean, collectively, well, with the help, let's say, of the N332 Facebook group, and we, as Brexpats in Spain and the British Embassy, challenged the Guardia Civil, and they were helping us with the appeals.
Right.
But I mean, it's uber important, super important that you do not pay the fine within the 10 days. Um, you have to challenge because apparently paying the fine is tantamount to admitting it's your fault.
Right. Yeah. I
And I,
mean, I think once the fine has been paid, there is no appeal, is there?
there is no appeal, but once you've appealed and it's been accepted, you can then request a refund of your money back, but it's going to take forever. Unfortunately,
Right.
a lot of these people, I mean, I can understand it. You're faced by an official looking and quite nasty sometimes, let's be honest, Guardia Civil, who's armed up to the eyeballs,
Sure.
doesn't speak a word of English. He stops you and you've got to pay €500, or here's your fine. You don't speak their language. You're just going to agree with it, aren't you? And accept the fine. And then they say you've got 10 days to pay it. Off you go, 50%, 10 days time. And some of the people are actually leaving within the 10 days. And they said, well, I couldn't risk it because I didn't want to miss out on my 50%. 250, it's quite noticeable, if they were going to be losing that much.
It's a lot
But
of
I mean,
money.
please contact me first and we'll do what we can.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to clarify this, Anne, this is happening to some people who are not resident,
Correct.
but are driving, for example, a Spanish plated car,
Correct.
and people who perhaps own a property and have an NIE, for example.
Correct. And they are driving on a UK. 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 Correct. And they are dr license, which they are saying, no, you are a resident, your UK license is no longer valid. It's not true.
Right. Okay.
So we need to put right because it is just wrong. Also, don't forget the blue badge. The UK blue badge is no longer valid in Spain, and I do know quite locally, actually, in Fuengirola, of two disabled drivers that were fined parking in the Blue Bay on the blue lines.
Right.
A little bit unkind because they could have waited or just put a note. It was fairly obvious these were disabled, genuinely disabled people. So I
Yeah.
find that a little bit unkind. But they were fined, unfortunately, for parking without the valid Spanish, I suppose, blue badge. You can apply for it as a resident, but it can take up to a year, 6 months certainly to get. It's not easy. But
Well,
as tourists, they cannot use it, and people must know this. So please, anybody who's got family coming over that's got a blue badge, don't think you can use it here in Spain. You cannot.
yeah.
And with regards to the driving fines, I know it's not legally a requirement in Spain to have an international driving permit, but I would recommend you get an international driving permit if you're coming here as a tourist. Shouldn't legally be necessary, but do so. It's only
Right.
£5.50 anyway, plus obviously the photos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So, where does this leave people? And it's happening, and it's happening in reasonable numbers. Um, so if this happens to people, contact you, contact the N322.
No, contact us first, and then we will sort it out with the N332 because it's me and the British ambassador that are challenging the Guardia Civil.
Right. Okay. My God,
Mm.
you're brave.
I know, tell me about it. I know, but what can you do? Someone's got to fight on their behalf, you
Sure.
know.
Yeah. Well,
Otherwise, they're just going to be allowed to get away with it. And I'm sorry to say, I will defend Spain to the hilt. I really will. But on this instance, they are wrong, and
right. And
and they can't be in the kitty. That's
what response did you get from the Guardia Civil about why this is happening,
from
Anne?
Central, from the main body in Madrid, that they would then be informing all of their I don't know what you call them, substations or whatever, all of their staff basically that was quite right. What we had said was quite right.
Right.
Obviously, they still haven't got that information. What can I say?
Right. Okay. So it's a case of watch this space, yeah?
I sincerely hope there's no more. I mean, there haven't been any since the 27th of July when that edict, let's say, quite sternly went out to the Guardia Civil. But again, this week I've heard of another one. So
Ah,
let's hope they're not starting up again. And that was in Almeria, not in my neck of the woods, not in Malaga.
right. Okay, Anne. Are there any other issues that are still coming up? I mean, I know that in terms of even the Brexpats international pages, a lot of it's been filled up with stuff to do with the death of the Queen and things like that. And I understand that.
Yeah, obviously the padron is something we need to be reminding people about, and then to get on the censo electoral. But I mean, you can give that update, Bill, because I think you got the
Yes,
email on
I
that, did you?
did. Okay. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have been asking me about, how can we vote? And to be honest, I haven't been able to give people anything solid. We've had rumors floating about and whatever, but and you've been here longer than I have, until we get something in writing
Yeah.
from the official authorities, actually, it doesn't matter what people say.
No.
Anyway, the office for the electoral census, or the electoral roll, actually provided information this morning, which
Uh-huh.
I got from the General Secretary of Mijas Council. And well, it looks like good news, Anne. Let me just see if I can show this on the screen, because
Okay.
I've kind of summarized some parts of it at least. Okay.
Okay. Yeah,
So
yeah.
this is from an official communication from the INE, the Institute for National Statistics, and the part that does the electoral body.
Uh-huh.
So, we've always known that there have been countries that have had special agreements with Spain, for a sort of reciprocal arrangements for voting in local elections. And this is taken. Obviously, I've translated it into English, but the countries agreement in force are, and we've got Bolivia, Cape Verde, Chile, and I've highlighted the United Kingdom and Trinidad and Tobago. So at least they are acknowledging now that the UK has an agreement with Spain for voting in the local elections. Okay. The next bit that I've taken out is just to say that as from the date of this communication, the ministerial order amending the previous order is in process. So there was a previous agreement, and now that needs to be amended officially to include the United Kingdom in the list of countries with an agreement signed with Spain and pending the amendment of the previous resolution. Does this sound
Yeah.
familiar to you, Anne? To include in the annex of requirements of the agreement with the United Kingdom amendment that cannot be initiated until the new ministerial order is published. So they're acknowledging that the UK residents here will have the right to vote in local elections, but it doesn't come into force until the new ministerial order is published. Now, we have no way of knowing when that will be, but we have to think it's going to be within the next month at least, Anne. There's also a section on the conditions for registration, and we kind of knew this. You have to be over 18 and basically not deprived of the right of active suffrage. So, you can't be in prison or something.
Mm.
You have to be registered on the Municipal Register of Inhabitants, the Padron. But for most Brits who are here legally, they will be on the Padron anyway. I don't think that's going to be an issue for most of us. You have to
3 years, isn't it, Bill? Minimum 3 years?
yeah, just coming down to that, you have to
Okay.
be in possession of the authorization of residence in Spain. So you need to have, I guess, the green certificate is still valid, so that would be okay, or your TIE. So you need to have these things in hand. And this is the bit you were asking about, Anne, to have resided legally in Spain at the time required in the corresponding agreement, which is 3 years at the time of application for nationals of the United Kingdom. So
Okay.
those are the main bits. I think there's a lot of stuff about different ways to register. I'm not even going to get into that at the moment because it's terribly complicated.
No, 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 no.
Um, but I think you'll probably agree with me that this is basically pretty good news, no?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, you and I have been working on this since before Christmas, so
Yeah.
hallelujah. Someone's put pen to paper, and we're now getting something in writing. Yeah.
But I think that's the key bit. I've read stuff even on the Brexpats or the Brexpats page of people saying this is what's going to happen, but until these official documents go out and are issued to the councils, nothing is going to happen. So it
No, anything can change as well. It's like provisional agreements; they can all change in the final
yeah,
format, can't
sure,
they?
sure. And there are lots of different ways, according to this document, about how people will be able to register. And sometimes if they
Mhm.
get a letter, they can just send it back and that will register them. Or if they have this clave, I've tried to actually link up with clave. It's this it's like a digital certificate almost.
Yeah.
You can have your driving license on it and things. And I've never had any success in actually getting myself
Neither have I.
connected with that. Or you can actually you will be able to go into the council office where you are registered and asked to be put on. But until this ministerial order is amended and published, you're not going to get any response from the council on this.
Well, no, and they don't have the documentation ready to fill out, even if you do turn up, do they? Yet?
No, no, well, they don't because this is what they're intending. It needs to go through Parliament or through this ministerial committee. It needs to be signed off, and once that's done, we will be able to register to vote. And so, say there appear to be a lot of different ways to do it, but
Mhm.
you know, given that the vast majority of Mijas residents, for example, are going to be, your age, my age, or older.
Uh-huh.
I,
Yeah.
I,
No.
I don't imagine a lot of them are going to have the digital savvy to do some of these things over
No.
the
Some
internet.
some of them are going to be techno dinosaurs, undoubtedly. Yes.
Yeah, but well, this is the first time, and I literally got this today.
Yeah.
I spoke to the General Secretary, Antonio Checa, yesterday, the General Secretary of
Uh,
the Council, and we had a conversation. And then this morning he sent me this, and it's also been sent out to all the councillors so that they know. So
okay.
I'm feeling a bit more content that something is actually moving on this, Anne.
But obviously, they have to remember that even though they're on the padron, if they are a non-resident, and some councils still encourage non-residents to go on the padron, which is wrong, but
Yeah.
they still do it. As a non-resident, if this is not your primary residence, you cannot go onto the electoral register. You
No,
are not entitled to vote.
I mean, it says that they have to be in possession of the an official residence in Spain document, so that the green
Uh-huh.
certificate or the TIE, and you have to
Yeah,
have resided legally in Spain for 3 years at the time of
yeah.
application, which is different actually for Norwegian residents who are not EU, but they have to
Uh-huh.
3 years at the time of voting. So don't ask me.
All right. Okay. Also, until next May.
Yeah. So, but by next May, they
Gosh.
have to be
Okay.
registered for 3 years. But for we Brits, we have to be registered legally as a resident for 3 years at the time of making the application to go on to the
On
voter.
the electoral register.
Yeah.
And that's very important. I mean, so many Brits here in Spain, especially those that live in the EU, now realise the importance of their vote,
Yes.
um, and they don't want a repeat of Brexit. So they realise how important their vote is, and they want to vote in the local elections. For some of us, it's the only vote we've got
Sure.
until the lifelong vote comes into power in the UK. We have no vote anywhere else. Obviously, we can't vote in the EU elections. We're no longer EU citizens. We can't vote in the Spanish national elections because we're not Spanish nationals. We can only vote in the local elections, and some of
Sure.
them, obviously, it's important because that is who is going to be governing your local area, improving it or making it work, whatever it might be. How your money is spent, your EB and everything else.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So they realise the importance of their vote, and there are quite a lot that want to vote. So I sincerely hope that the councils, the town hall departments, will be able to facilitate enough appointments, possibly
Yeah.
online, for the people to get down there and actually register. They're obviously going to have to do it in person, I would think, if they've got to give proof of their residency and padron. I don't
Well,
know.
there apparently are ways of doing it online, Anne. I don't know how that's going to work, but if you get this letter from the INE saying that you're eligible to vote,
Uh-huh.
apparently there will be some kind of code on that people might be
Okay.
able to go into the INE website or the Sede Electronica
Well,
and use this code to register. But I do think for a lot of people, it's just not going to be practical, Anne.
no, I can see that you and I are going to be quite busy come that time.
I think so. I did raise the issue with,
Bill, helping people register or electoral register.
well, I did raise
I mean,
the issue.
2019, I helped out at the registration, not register, at the polling
Right.
booths, let's say, to help with the Brits that didn't speak Spanish, because they turned up with their padron to vote and they weren't on the electoral register. And they said, we don't have the padron in England, do we? We only have the electoral register. And there's so many people say the padron is the equivalent of the electoral register. It is not.
No.
It's as well as the electoral register.
Yeah.
So it's really important to be on the both padron and the electoral register.
But I think that's really important to point out, and that just doesn't give you the right to vote. It has
No.
to be a separate process. And what Antonio Checa, the General Secretary, said to me yesterday is that although in theory the electoral register doesn't exist until the elections are called, that there are no Brits on the electoral register. It doesn't matter if you voted before, you are no longer going to appear on the electoral register unless you re-register.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, no, it's super important to get on it.
yeah.
Absolutely. So it's not just a case of being on the padron people for 3 years. It's also adding yourself to the electoral register as and when we can actually get the register. And obviously, we'll keep you
We will
updated.
indeed. Are there
Yeah.
any other things coming up routinely on the Brexpats pages, and that might be of interest to people?
No, I mean, it's driving licenses and these fines that we're sorting out. What else is coming up? Non-lucrative visas. A lot of people are applying for the non-lucrative visas. Some are being knocked back. I must be truthful, because they're not providing the right information.
Right.
And then you say, well, did your solicitor do it for you or your gestor? No, I've done it for myself. Well, you
Ah,
know that your documentation, apart from an S1, which is your document from the National Health in the UK, if you are a pensioner, transfers your right to, let's say, the equivalent of Spanish National Health. So you don't need private medical insurance. That's the only the document that does not need to be officially translated
yeah,
into Spanish. So they're waiting around. They then get notification in the UK. Obviously, you have to go back to the UK to apply either at the London, Manchester, or Edinburgh consulate for the appointment. And they're waiting for their visa, only to then be told, no, your documentation was inadequate. And it's taken even. I mean, they've got time to present it again, but it's taken even longer.
yeah.
So 3 months that they might think they're there, perhaps they're going to be there 4 or 5 months. So it's important to get it all done right in the first place, really.
And this is, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that people pay other people to do, and that
Yeah,
actually could be done quite easily themselves. But the non-lucrative visa is something. I have a friend of mine who's involved in this
yeah,
this area as well, and he said, the biggest thing we've got to do is make sure that people have all their ducks in a row before the application goes in, and you know, unless you're really savvy, this is a more complicated thing than signing on the padron or even getting the
absolutely,
TIE.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. There's also, I mean, there's different visas. I mean, some say, well, I'm coming out here to work, so I want non-lucrative visa. You can't work. It is what it means. Non-lucrative. It means you cannot be earning.
Yeah,
It's for people that are not going to be working here. A lot of them, unfortunately, let's say swallows that are trying to get around their 90 days in 180 days, are being misled, misinformed, and thinking if they apply for a non-lucrative visa, it's only for 1 year. Well, yes, it is only for 1 year in the first instance, but it's a 5-year visa. The second
yeah,
and third year you apply for together. The fourth and fifth year you apply for together. It's not a way around getting your 90 days in 180 extended.
yeah. And it is important to say that people that are
It just doesn't
applying
happen.
for the second and third years, they have to have double the income.
Double the amount, which is just, I mean, it's not far short of 28,000 if it's for an individual. It's 7,000 on top for a partner, for a
Yeah,
spouse, so to speak, legally married, or common law, and 7,000 for every child as well that's accompanying them. So
uh,
it's quite a lot of money to come up with in the second,
yeah,
second and third and
the
fourth
third
and fifth
year,
year.
it's a big sum of money for not
It
being
is a
able
huge
to
sum of
work.
money that not everybody can afford. But I mean, it's really important. This is not a way around the 90 and any 180 days. And plus, I need to remind people that with a non-lucrative visa, it's a 5-year visa. And within that 5 years, you are only allowed to be out of Spain for 10 months,
In
with
5 years,
one maximum period of 6 months. So
right?
if you're gone away for longer than that, it's likely to be revoked anyway.
Yeah,
So you've wasted your money, basically. And a
yeah,
lot of them, it costs money. I mean, it might cost €1,000 upwards to get this. Plus, then you've got to have your criminal record check. You've got to have your medical certificate from your surgery, your doctor, to say that you're not bringing in any contagious diseases. You've got to have all of your, as I'm saying, your English written documents, your bank statements, etc., officially translated by a Spanish
yeah,
translator, stamped, etc. It's not. You can't get next door neighbour to translate it for you because they speak Spanish.
yeah.
It's not as simple as that. I mean, one lady said to me, "Oh no, my son's school teacher did it because she's Spanish." Well, I'm sure her Spanish is fluent, but she couldn't stamp it as an official translator,
Uh,
so
uh,
it was knocked back. So what can you do?
But that,
But I
that
mean, I
that's the
know
thing.
people are trying to save money, but there's ways of,
It's the
Spain is not
stamp.
that stupid.
It's the stamp,
Pardon?
isn't it? It's the stamp. That's the bit, isn't it? It's not the translation. It's the
Yeah,
stamp at the bottom of
it's
it
this
that
stamp.
that
Yeah, with
really.
their number as an official translator. Absolutely. No,
Yeah,
no, that's quite right. So, I mean, there isn't really, um, the swallows, second homeowners, call them what you will, there is no way around this 90 days in any 180. There really isn't. They are allowed to drive here on their UK driving license for 6 months, up to 6 months, which is odd since they're only allowed to stay here for 3 months.
yes,
But your driving license is valid for 6 months from your date of arrival. So back to the fines again. You should not be being fined for driving a Spanish registered vehicle. I mean, I know a man who got fined and he was driving a Spanish registered vehicle, but it was a hire car.
right,
And how wrong is that? And the hire car company haven't said anything; they've just accepted it.
right.
So there's all sorts of funny goings on, to be truthful, and we've got to sort of try and sort it for everybody.
And I mean, I know some people have been finding this very hard because they hadn't got their license changed over for whatever reason. Doesn't matter what the
Yeah,
reasons were, and haven't been able to drive since what, the end of May. Uh,
April. Yeah,
and there was someone I was talking to at the
it's
weekend.
really no difficult, but I know they both.
Yeah, there's someone I was talking to at the
Yeah.
weekend was saying, yeah, but my son's coming over to visit in October, and he'll be able to drive my car on his British license.
Well, that is true. He will be able to. As a tourist, he will be
Yeah,
able to for up to 6 months. But I would still recommend he gets an international driving permit.
yeah,
And don't forget, out here, it's not the person that is insured; it's the vehicle that is insured.
yeah,
So I would still check with your insurance company that your son, who has a British driving license, is entitled to drive your car.
right. Yeah,
Certainly, if you're going back to the UK, some of the companies, it should be allowed, but an internal policy of some of the insurance companies, they won't allow it, and they will make some. It's a minimum charge, to add Sonny Jim or somebody or mum or dad to their policy for perhaps 2 weeks. But it's
sure.
it's not impossible to do. But I mean, cover your bonds basically. So get an driving permit. Do whatever you can. Have it. I mean, it's always best to have more than less because you get to the police station and you can bet your life the one copy you haven't brought is the one they
Yeah,
want.
and as you say, it may just be a phone call to your insurance company,
Absolutely. Yeah.
just to make sure.
Yeah.
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 Well,
Yeah.
so really, we're kind of stuck on. Well, the voting stuff seems to be moving forward. I'm sure the driving license stuff is moving forward, but
I hope so.
there's just nothing to see.
Just nothing to see yet. There's no update. But I mean, we've got, thanks to a police officer for the N332, we have the written text in Spanish that needs to be attached to the appeal that explains
Right,
the situation. So, I mean, contact me and we can get that to them. But please let me know because, as I said, I'm working very closely on this with the British ambassador.
right, right.
And if we're not told about it, we can't defend you. We can't sort it, can we?
No. So
We think everything's hunky dory. We need to be about these things.
you're keeping pretty
And of
busy.
course, then there's the
You're keeping pretty
pardon.
busy.
I'm keeping pretty busy sorting out problems, yes. And then, of course, to remind people, there's the end of September, if they've got any paper £20 or £50 notes, UK notes, they will cease to be legal tender
Yeah,
in favour of the plastic ones, the polymers. And I'm led to believe that after that, you can't even exchange them. I
yeah,
think they said you could pay them into a post office, which would be in the UK, if it's paying into your mortgage or something like that, or an investment account or something, but you certainly can't use them in the shops or anything. So can you imagine anybody that's done a bit of a bank raid in the years past? They're all going to be out digging up their booty, aren't they?
we had some British, well, Scottish and English notes, 20s and 50s, that we tended to keep for when we went over to the UK,
Mhm.
and we haven't been there for 3 years, so that we had some there, and we went to two
Mm,
different exchange places in La Cala, and one said, "Yeah,
yeah.
we can change them," and they took some, and we thought, "Oh, okay," but it was 20% off the exchange rate.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we exchanged some, but I had some Scottish notes, and they said, "No, no, no, we can't exchange those." So I
They're
went to
illegal in Scotland. Yeah.
another one in La Cala and said, "Look, are you able to exchange these notes?" And he said, "Yeah, no problem," and gave us the full rate for it. So we
Oh,
lost
that's good.
about 40 euros on the first transfer at the one, and
Uh-huh.
then the full rate at the other one. So it's
Uh-huh.
just, even if people have notes they want to exchange, shop around and find
Please
out.
do it before the end of the month. You haven't got long to go.
Yeah.
What's there, 8 days left in September? Yeah.
Oh,
I'm talking about money. The non-resident UK bank accounts, some of them are being closed. Certainly, I believe Lloyds and Barclays are closing, and some of the other banks, all part of Brexit. So anybody that has a mortgage, insurances, investments, their ISAs, or anything like this, they need to check if they have a non-resident UK bank account that it's not actually being closed,
right.
and then they can make alternative arrangements.
Yeah, I was talking
Otherwise,
to
I mean, if you've
someone.
got a credit card or a debit card or something from any of those banks, it's suddenly not going to be valid. Some of them are saying by the end of September, others are saying by the end of the year.
Well, I was talking to someone this morning who's involved in the sort of money transfer business, and what he said was that, you know, even if the bank accounts are frozen for general use,
Uh-huh.
you can still make a transfer, and probably the easiest way to do it is via one of these money transfer companies. Um, Yeah, but, you know, it can still be taken out and transferred to another account, but it might be easier to do that via a money exchange company.
Yeah, or one of these Revolut or Wise or something.
Yeah,
But I mean, people that have their pensions paid into their UK bank account, it won't. I don't know. It won't be transferable. I'm assuming it won't be transferred. So ideally, get it sent directly to your Spanish bank account would be
sure.
better. But
And,
I don't know.
as you say,
I think the
there are
exchange rate's gone down quite a lot, hasn't it? 113 or something.
yeah. I'm not sure. I tend not to give advice on this stuff because
It changes too frequently.
I don't wanna get it wrong, Anne, you know?
No, no, no. I only know what our sponsors who are Blevins Franks tell me. So I
Yeah,
believe them. I'm not a financial expert at all. No, absolutely not.
yeah. Okay, well, get rid of your British notes if you can by the end of, this month. Um,
Yeah.
if
Get yourself on the padron. Get yourself on the electoral register. Inform me if you get fined because you're driving on a UK driving. Apparently, what they're saying is they are issuing those fines because there's a lot of Brits that are very naughtily driving on their UK driving licenses here, even though they shouldn't be as residents, and claiming that they are non-resident. So they're just issuing the fines anyway, and knowing that if you are a non-resident, you are going to appeal. Otherwise, you're not going to appeal, are you?
no, that's right.
That's
Oh,
what I'm
well,
told.
and maybe there is something behind that, Anne.
I don't know. I mean, I will go back 6 years, and from day one, I said the stumbling block is going to be Gibraltar, and I still think it is. I still think there's some sort of hold. It's the only hold Spain's got over us, isn't it?
Sure,
With Brexit, is Gibraltar.
sure.
Since Boris has threatened to renege on the provisional agreement with Gibraltar over immigration, I think they're just being a little bit digging their heels in, to be
Yeah.
truthful.
And
Doesn't help us, but what can we do? We've just got to go along with it, Bill.
indeed we have, Anne. Listen,
Yeah,
thank you so much for joining me this evening.
thank you.
We
I'm sorry
managed
there wasn't too much to update on Brexit, but God
yeah,
rest her soul, the Queen, and good luck to King Charles III. Let's hope he has the same success. Obviously, it won't be 70 years, but
no, I
it,
don't think so.
it's nice to see he's been so readily welcomed because I wasn't too sure actually over Camilla, the Princess Diana, etc. But it seems that they've been both accepted, which is nice to see.
Yeah, it is indeed. It is
Yeah.
indeed.
Mm.
And thank you so much. We'll be back in about a month, Anne, to hopefully have some solid updates on something.
Thank you, Bill. We'll talk again. I don't doubt. Absolutely. And if not, catch my Brexpats in Spain International, one of my 7
Okay,
Facebook groups.
and thank you so much. Uh, we
Thank
shall
you. Have
speak
a good
soon.
evening.
Thanks to those who have joined in this evening. My live streaming thing has gone a bit strange because it didn't actually publish to my Facebook page today, and I wrote to them
Okay.
and said, "What's happening?" So I've shared the link onto YouTube, but we're going to put the YouTube video onto the Facebook pages anyway, so as people can catch
Okay.
them.
Well, I shall
Okay.
share it, obviously. It will be on my Brexpat. So thank you so much. And I'll talk to you
Okay.
again next month, if not sooner.
Thank you so much, Anne. Take care
Bye
now.
bye.
Have a great weekend when it comes, everyone.